All right, hello everyone. So I'm coming on here just briefly to share my opinion. This is my opinion, and I do believe it's an educated opinion. But this is going to be relevant for those in the USA, Canada, and the UK regarding the bank called Capital One. Okay, Capital One. I don't even remember what year it was. It was a while ago, probably it was over a decade ago. They bought out ING Direct, and just recently they bought out Discover, okay, which is one of the major credit card companies. You know, you've got Visa, you've got MasterCard, you got American Express, and Discover. And Discover, was, they've always been known for, if you call them, you get a human being on the phone and yada, yada, yada. Now, if you've been paying attention even the slightest bit over the last, 4 years at least, you know that there's been all kinds of bad reports regarding Bank of America, Chase, and so forth. But I have not heard anything negative regarding Capital One. And yes, I do bank with Capital One. I was originally with ING Direct, and then they got bought out by Capital One. Now, have I come on here and reported little changes that I've noticed that Capital One has been implementing over the last couple years? Yes, I have. And although I don't necessarily like the changes, from their perspective, the changes they're making are wise in a business sense, and they are safeguarding themselves from becoming insolvent. They are safeguarding themselves from having liquidity issues, etc., so that they're not having to be in a position where they are stealing people's money and so forth, unlike Bank of America, Chase, etc. And so, for that reason, I'm coming on here and just bringing this to your attention. What Holy Spirit is popping in my head right now is, each of us have our own life. We have our own path, and we have our own sin, our own mistakes. Some of us try to seek the Lord as much as we can and submit to His will. Others are led by their own carnal intellect, etc., etc. In these perilous times, you don't know what tomorrow brings. And yes, of course, you don't know when you're going to breathe your last, but you don't know while you're alive what's going to happen. You don't know. You just don't know. And so I do think it's wise in these last days to have a national bank so that if you have to up and go and you become transient and you're moving around from state to state, it won't matter in terms of your debit card, in terms of your banking, etc., whatever. You'll have more flexibility to have a nationwide bank such as Capital One. But I do think that Capital One, out of all the big banks, in my opinion, I do believe Capital One is the most safe. And I will continue to ask the Lord and check in with Him on this, but I've been asking Him the last 4 years if He wants me to change banks, and He says no, and then He shows me how all these other major banks are having all these bad reports, all these issues. So I'm just bringing this to your attention for you to take back to God and pray about it and ask Him what His will is. But that's my exhortation to you in the name of Yeshua, the Christ of Nazareth. Go ask Holy Spirit what bank the Lord wants you banking with. Is it time to change banks? Is it time to, be more prudent? There's a lot to be said for prudence, okay? Go read the book of Proverbs. Prudence is when you think ahead and you try to be prepared, you try to plan ahead for the unexpected, you try to think ahead of repercussions and consequences, etc., etc. You try to zoom out and picture the big picture as best you can and prepare for the unexpected. In my opinion, I think Capital One is the best bank in the USA to be banking with at this time. So, I'm just presenting that for you to go pray about, and the rest is on you. The rest is between you and God. I bless you all in the name of Yeshua, the Christ of Nazareth. Oh, and let me also just inform you, Capital One is a online bank. They have very, very, very few local branches. But, again, that saves them on costs. It safeguards them from becoming insolvent, at least a little bit. And depending on which kind of account you have, like, for example, I have a interest-bearing checking account. So every month I'm earning at least a few cents of interest. That was something that someone mentored me on about 20 years ago. You should have a bank where you're not only not being charged stupid fees, but that you're earning interest each month. So I'll just put that out there as well. All right. I bless you all in the name of Yeshua, the Christ of Nazareth.